Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast. My name is Monty Wyatt, and I'm here to take you on a journey into the world of coaching, exploring its many different facets and uncovering its profound impact on individuals, businesses, and executives alike. We'll be delving into real-life case studies combined with in-depth research from coaching experts to give you a better understanding of why coaching works today. So if you're ready to begin your exploration into the power of coaching, then let's get started. Before we get into this month's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact Monty Wyatt by booking an appointment at www.addZerosNow.com. That's ADDZEROSNOW.com, AddZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have a few coaching spots available for 2025. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast, where we talk about the impact of coaching, growth of businesses, and personal development. I'm your host, Monty Wyatt. If you're a CEO, executive, or business owner, this is the show for you. And we call our audience the achiever because you're always striving for the next level. And it is my pleasure to have another author on the show with me today, another great coach, another person impacting a lot of businesses. Gregory Shepard has built and sold 12 businesses. He and his team excel in nurturing technology startups from seed to sale. He provides robust operational support and coaching and advisory services to a portfolio of companies and helps founders from startup to sale. So, Gregory, welcome to Why Coaching Works.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you've done a lot in a short amount of time with growth of businesses. You've grown your own businesses and sold them. So I'd love for you to share with our audience, the achiever, your story of maybe how you started in business, because you've done a lot of different things in technology, and I'd love to hear you tell your story.
Sure. So, for background, I grew up poor. We didn't have anything. So, that's one piece. I'm neurodivergent, so I have autism and dyslexia. So that made things harder also. If you fast forward, I've built and sold 12 companies. I've won 4 private equity awards for transactions between 250 million and a billion, sold a couple companies to eBay, became the chief strategy officer for eBay Enterprise Marketing Solutions, left eBay after a few years, went into politics, worked as a chairman for congressional candidates, put together the largest research project that's been done on why, when, and how founders fail, wrote a book about that, done a TED Talk. There's a lot of things I've done, but in general, my focus is to try to help people overcome obstacles and achieve things because I have an insatiable appetite for achievement myself.
Absolutely. You got to have that appetite to grow today, don't you?
Yeah, you really do. Well, there is the concept of, to me, of looking at struggle as something that you should try to create and then overcome. And then you step on that as something that moves you up. You become stronger, and then you can move up the ladder of life, right? So if you don't face struggle and you hide from struggle, you never get past that ladder of life. So what I do is I choose the struggle instead of letting it choose me. And then I overcome that struggle, become stronger, step to the next ladder, choose another struggle item, and move on that way. It's hard enough to start a business and sell and hear the no's all day, and it can be very negative sometimes. So you need to have what I call private wins, which are things that you win yourself, and just because you won yourself, your self-confidence grows, and then it's not so hard to hear no all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to have those wins to build momentum, and you got to look for them. You got to find them, and you got to see them every single day.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to create them.
Yes.
You have to create a scenario where you win because sometimes you just need a win, you know?
I love that.
Sometimes, a week goes by and you just need a win, right? So you go out and find one and then win and then get your appetite suppressed, you know?
You bet. You bet. Now, you've coached and you've advised a lot of businesses as well, not just your own companies. But I'd love for you to tell a story of how you've helped someone really change from a startup to going to sale, and what they had to grow as an individual, but also had how they had to grow as an organization.
Absolutely. So when you look at the process of a startup, there's 7 stages in a startup, right? You go from vision to product, from product to go to market, from go to market to standardization, then growth, then optimization, then growth, then exit, right? So you have these different stages. So what I do sometimes is I'll coach a founder from one stage to another. And what I find out a lot of times is that they actually have so much self-doubt and so much imposter syndrome that they have a really difficult time sort of feeling like they are in a position of power to make the right decisions and have direct conversations with people.
Hmm.
So a lot of times a founder will make a mistake and everybody makes mistakes, right? I mean, it just happens, and you make a mistake and then you don't deal with the mistake. You sort of hide from the mistake or stick your head in the sand. And those are those points of struggle, right? You face that head on and you say, I made a mistake. You tell your team you made a mistake or the vendor or whoever it is you're working with. You ask for forgiveness and then you move on. And I find that a lot of founders struggle with that process.
Hmm.
They struggle with it for a variety of reasons. One of them is they already have this imposter syndrome. They're already insecure, and now they have to face this mistake head on. But by facing that mistake head on and dealing with it, you actually give yourself more power instead of less power. The more you do it, the better you feel about your own sense of confidence and your own ability to handle the problems that maybe before you were hiding from. So, I have a few founders that have been through this process. One founder made a lot of mistakes, went out and leased an office building thinking that there was going to be some money coming from an investor. The money didn't come from the investor. Now they had this lease they had to deal with. And instead of telling the landlord, look, I made a mistake. I never moved in and I didn't get funded, so I can't do this anymore. They hid from the mistake, right? And just kind of left it there. And then they chased him down and they chased him down and ended up in court. And then finally the person had to deal with that error. And so in this example, if that person would have just started by saying the real situation and dealt with those circumstances right off the bat, that would have empowered their leadership instead of taking power away from their leadership. You get weak when you don't face things, you get strong when you do.
I love that. You get weak when you don't face things, and you get strong when you do. That's great. You know, it's interesting. So many founders, when they start, they find a service, they find a product that they think is amazing, but they've got that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
How do you overcome imposter syndrome?
I think that there's a healthy side to imposter syndrome, right? I think there is no place for anybody in business to have a big ego and be arrogant. I just think there's no place for it. I think it's better to be humble. Imposter syndrome can keep you humble, but it's okay to say, okay, I have this imposter syndrome and face the fact that you have the imposter syndrome. And by doing that, I think that you have less of it just by dealing with saying, I have imposter syndrome, right? I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I know enough, whatever it is that's creating that imposter syndrome. But I think by facing it head on and agreeing with yourself that those things exist, you then empower yourself to overcome those things. Well, If I don't think I'm smart enough, how do I become smart enough? If I don't think I know enough about the space, how do I know enough about the space? And then you start checking those boxes. You can keep the humility of the imposter syndrome, but then you can become more powerful so that it doesn't, cramp you. It's like you're running and you get a cramp in your thigh and you're just, there's a way to run with pain and there's a way where you can't run with pain.
I really like how you said that if you don't address it, it's going to continue. And if I don't do this, then how do I overcome this? What do I have to learn? Who do I have to get in touch with? How do I get over this hump? And that gives you confidence and that
Yeah.
gives you more strength.
Yeah, it's interesting because, where I got this from was actually from a doctor. And I was at a doctor appointment. The doctor's like, listen, you have high blood pressure and you can do three things. You can change the way you're living and get rid of your high blood pressure. You can take medication and continue living the way you're living, or you can die of a heart attack, right? And I said, well, what's the deal with the medication? Naturally, we all are like, yeah, just give me the pill, right? Just give me the pill. Well, he's like, yeah, well, here's the side effects and riddled off a bunch of side effects. And I'm like, hard pass on the medication. How about I look at changing my lifestyle? And he says, well, in order to get your blood pressure down, you have to change what you're eating, which means that you have to change everything about yourself, right? Because, your family eats a certain way. So now you have to change everybody's eating patterns, right? In order for it to work. It's the same with the business and your own imposter syndrome, right? You have to realize what the symptoms are, diagnose, right, what the symptoms are. Once you diagnose the symptoms, you have to make lifestyle changes. I don't mean band-aids. I mean lifestyle changes, right? I don't mean the scenario where you're like, well, I'm just going to eat less or I'm just going to use less salt, but I'm not going to use salt. Instead, I'm going to use spices. I'm not going to eat red meat. Instead, I'm going to eat white meat or whatever, right? So, it change you have to do that same thing with your own imposter syndrome. Like being somebody with autism, it took me a long time to get on a stage. The lights and all the people and everything. And I decided what I was going to do is I was going to be like an actor and I was going to put on a persona and then I was going to act through that. And with imposter syndrome, you can do the same thing because I don't think it goes away. I think these things are deep seated in your brain from childhood or something, right? This whole insecurity and imposter syndrome. But you sure as hell can sit there and change and put up a mask, right? Put up a persona, put up a character that doesn't have imposter syndrome, somebody that doesn't have the insecurities, but still has the humility because that's still in the background. So I think that there's a way, I think imposter syndrome, you can sometimes these challenges that you have when you're moving through business have to do with it's like a sail, right? Your sail could be against the wind or for the wind, and that just has to do with how you turn your sails, right? So if I have imposter syndrome, I can have the sail going the wrong way. All I got to do is turn my sail towards the wind, and now what used to be a headwind is now a tailwind.
Mm.
And so you can change things, but you have to change your sales, which is changing how you see these things. Instead of seeing them as something that's holding you back, see them as something that can move you forward. And all you have to do to make that change is move your sales, meaning overcome the obstacle.
Mhm.
And you can't do that without facing it. That's a one single answer thing.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You talk about founders and you talk about bringing new ideas to the market. You talk about building a business from scratch. What is the biggest challenge of letting go? Why, for a founder to let go and let someone else run the business or let someone else do that, how do you get them over that challenge of letting go?
I think that for me, anyway, I always hire people that are better than me in the area that I'm hiring for, right? And the way I let go is I say they're better than me. Like they're just better than me, right? you should always hire people that are better than you. I mean, if you hire a one, that person's going to hire a two. So if you hire a three, that person's going to hire a four, and you eventually end up with a bunch of sixes, right? So what you have to do is you have to hire somebody that's better than you, and you have to train them to hire somebody that's better than them. So instead of the cascade going downhill, the cascade is constantly climbing. When I do that, I feel good about letting go of a certain functional area or something because I know that it's in good hands. I know it's with somebody that's better than me at whatever it is that they're doing. That doesn't mean that I lose control because I still get to piggyback on their efforts, right? So for me, letting go is a process of confidence in the person that you're handing off the functional area or the business to. So hire somebody that gives you that confidence.
Absolutely right. And that's a big part of you're exactly right. When people aren't confident in their team, they don't give them more resources, they don't give them more responsibility, and they keep that on their shoulders or keep it into their own mind that they have to do it. And that's a big challenge I see in many of my clients as well.
Yeah, I mean, one plus one should be 10. It
Yes.
shouldn't be two. So if the other one that you're adding doesn't multiply you and you don't multiply them, then you shouldn't be hiring that person and you certainly shouldn't be letting go. Now that's in contrast to some people where they have somebody that actually really good, but they're afraid to let go because of their own insecurities, right? Control, like they lose control. And what you have to remember in that scenario is that you can't scale a business and keep control over everything. It's impossible, right? You're one person, and pretty soon what's going to happen is you're going to be juggling too many balls, and some of the balls are going to drop and you are going to be the problem instead of the person that you should be working with to do these things for you, right? So it's divide and conquer.
I like to say it this way, the leader of the business is the ceiling. And so if the leader of the business, the founder, the CEO, the owner, whoever it might be, isn't letting go, they're impacting the growth of the business. They're impacting the future of the business. So you've got to have that. Like you said, it can't scale if you keep control of everything.
Yeah, I tell people it's hard to reach for the future when you're anchored to the past,
Mm,
right? And so if you are anchored, you're anchoring the business by restricting the business to move forward because you're tied, right? When you let go, that person's anchored and that person's anchored, and it's like handing off a baton and you can start moving forward. But a lot of times, the founder is the problem because of their fear and because they're just, tied, anchored to to whatever, and they just have a really hard time getting past it. Um, for me, I agree with your hypothesis. I think it's definitely true, right? And if you're at the top, whatever's underneath you is a product of your own creation.
mhm.
And whether it grows, restricts, or stays the same, you created that scenario, just like we're responsible for our own lives. A lot of people blame their problems on other things, but really, when it comes down to it, you made the choices.
It's all about choices. Every day, every decision, every person that you deal with is a decision and a choice. And that's the powerful thing of us having the willpower to do what we can is you make the choices. And
Hmm.
so I really appreciate you sharing some of those insights. And I want to reinforce a couple points to my audience, the achiever. You can't scale if you keep control over everything, and the founder can be the problem. And the founder can be the problem of the growth. The founder can be the problem of recruitment. The founder can be the problem of expansion of the business. And so I really appreciate that. You know, I want to change the topic just a little bit. I'm sure you've been coached before, so I'd love to see and hear how the impact of coaching has changed your life and how you've gotten over obstacles because of being coached.
I mean, having a mentor in life or a bunch of them is critical, right? I mean, it's a lonely road to build a business by yourself, and you can't always share, problems, challenges, or things you're insecure or unsure about with your team, right? Because then they become unsure or insecure about your ability to run the company. So it's really helpful to have somebody to just bounce things off of. And that's one reason. Another reason is because they have different perspectives. So, sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Sometimes you're on the inside of the jar and you can't see the label.
Mhm.
And people from the outside are looking at the label, and that combination of things can really give you a perspective that's more holistic, instead of so siloed in your own brain, right? And you need that outside perspective. You need that outside perspective to help you broaden what you're doing. So I have mentor coaches, uh, more than one, and I've had many in my life. Some of them have passed away, and they have fundamentally changed my life. I'll tell you a quick story. So, I had this coach mentor named Jim Eubanks, and he's passed away since then. This guy was amazing, and I was working in sales, and this was real early on. And I had this territory in LA that nobody wanted. The only reason why I got the job is because nobody wanted to work in this territory because it was in East LA in a pretty bad area. I had a Ford Mustang with an oil leak that was so bad that I had to keep a case of oil in the back to fill it up like gasoline as I went from sales call to sales call. These were in-person sales calls. And this guy tells me, and I'm on commission, right? And he tells me, I want you to go with me. And he's driving a Ferrari, right? So he drops me off at this bus bench and leaves me there every Wednesday for about an hour and a half. And it's hot. I'm wearing a suit. I'm just baking. The bus comes by. I'm like, no, I'm not getting on the bus. And across the street was this dirt lot. And on the dirt lot was a sign, and the sign said coming soon and had a picture of a building. For about 6 months, every week, I had to sit at this friggin' bus bench for about an hour and just stare across the street. At the end of it, he asked me, "What did you learn?" And I said, "Well, I mean, he's, what did you see?" And I said, "Well, first I saw a sign that said coming soon. Then I saw a fence. Then I saw a giant hole. And then I saw the building go up." And he goes, "How long did each one of those stages take?" And the point was the planning phase and the digging of the foundation took more than half the time, like 60, 70% of the time. Once that was done, the building went up right away. And he said, that is what happens when you plan. He goes, building something stable, you're not building on quicksand. You plan appropriate, dig a nice healthy foundation, and the rest will fly up. And that's the kind of thing you get from a good coach mentor, right? Is you get this ability to really, really, you know, uh, get a perspective and get some messages that are unlike anything that you would ever. You can't coach yourself. You need somebody from the outside. And that was that changed my whole life. I realized, I'm like, man, I need to spend some time. I think it was Lincoln that said, if I'm going to sell something, if I'm going to chop down a tree, I'm going to take 50% of the time and sharpen my saw. That's another example of the same thing. And those are the kind of things that you get from having a coach, because you're so busy just plowing away doing your business that you forget to step back and look at the trail you're blazing, you know?
Mm. I love that. I love that. It is someone that sees the perspectives that you can't see. And
Yeah.
and that's exactly right. And we all, no matter how successful you are, you need a coach. You need someone to help you see things. You need someone to encourage you. You need someone to challenge you. And so I thank you for sharing that story. It's always a
Yeah, and
great.
sometimes you just need somebody to give you a data boy, you know? I mean, you're not sitting there patting yourself on the back for the things you've done well, but you sure as hell are beating yourself up for the things you don't do well. Sometimes a coach is just there to say, "Hey, good job." And you're like, and you think you don't need it, but we do need it. And
Yes, we
science has
do.
proven that we actually need that. It drops uh, good dopamine hormones get dropped when you do that. It can change your whole mood. You're having a hard day and something happened and you call your coach and maybe they dig for something that you did right, give you a attaboy, and then you get that little dopamine hit and then bam, now you're off and you're doing your business again. You
Yep,
know?
absolutely. That encouragement is everything. It
So for
really is.
sure.
It
I
really
mean, I
is.
learned this because if you watch professional sports and you see them celebrating the small successes and you see them celebrating the failures because they're moving closer down the field, right? Like that is a perfect example of why it's so important to celebrate small successes and how coaches can do that for you because it's really difficult to do it for yourself.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. If we've got some founders listening to us today, we have CEOs, we have business owners. If there was one tip that you would have to a founder today, what would that one tip be?
Um, Read my book. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. Um, I think that the if I were to give somebody one thing, I think what I would say is to create. My mom told me something. I was trying to join the Navy, and she said, um, "Life is your painting. Why would you give the brush to somebody else?" And I think that the advice I would give people is that if you take a regular job, you're giving the paintbrush to somebody else. And you can literally be the artist of your own life and, create what you're after. Yes, there's going to be some suffering. Yes, it's going to be really hard. But if you change the shape of those emotions, you can see them as small successes, just like, some football player who's right at the 1 yard line and gets smashed and can't make it over the touchdown versus somebody that does make it down. Maybe you miss this one, you hit the next one. I think optimism, I call it a handful of things. Um, Optimism, discipline, focus, drive, and enthusiasm. Those are the things you need. If you have those things, you can be successful.
Love that. Optimism, discipline, focus, drive, and enthusiasm. You're,
Yeah.
you're, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And it takes all of them. You can't just be enthusiastic. You can't just be excited about it. You have to have discipline. You have to have that focus on the right things. So yeah, that's fantastic. You know, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your book and just give our audience a little high level view of what they can learn from your book and where to find it.
The book is called The Startup Life Cycle by Gregory Shepard. It's in everywhere. You can find it anywhere. Um, it covers the life cycle of a startup from the point where you're like, I have an idea, all the way to the point of an exit. It was based off of 5 years of research and 4 years to write the book. Um, it is got basically if you're in the vision stage where I have an idea, it tells you why, when, and how founders fail during that stage, how to avoid it, and what to do. And then it moves through the entire life cycle, all 7 stages. Um, it's got 5 stars in Amazon, it's in Audible, it's in hardback, it's in Kindle, it's in all the bookstores. And I would really be grateful and appreciative for anybody that buys it, reads it, and gives me a good review. I'd be really, if you think it's great, you know, that I would really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for sharing that about your book. as an author, it's always good to have those reviews and have people continue to support you. So I appreciate you sharing that. And our
Well, thanks
audience,
for letting me plug it, man. Thank you.
absolutely. I want our audience to continue learning and growing, and that's how you continue to get new knowledge and get new perspectives. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, very good.
My website is gregoryshepherd.com, by the way, if they want to see all the crazy things that I accomplished.
Well, wonderful. I appreciate that. As we close down here, any other last words that you'd give to a founder or a CEO today?
There is one thing that maybe this is the answer to your previous question, but I think something that's really, really seriously important is meditation.
Hmm.
Because in meditation, you clear out all the noise and you get to some really strong points. I don't, a lot of people think of meditation, oh, I have to sit there and have no thoughts. That is not meditation. I mean, that maybe a Buddhist monk does that, but a regular person, what you're trying to do is notice your thoughts. That's it. You have a thought, you just go, oh, and pretty soon you notice them quicker and quicker. What that means is that in daily business, you can notice these thoughts, you can notice things around you faster. You become way more capable. And you instead of just listening, you're hearing, right? And you can pay more attention to your own intuition. I think meditation is critical. Just quieting your mind and letting your thoughts surface, noticing them, and figuring out which ones you need to pay attention to and which ones you usher away. I think it's a huge, I found out about it about 5 years ago, and I'm not the kind of person that would do that, And I found out about that 5 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And the more I do it every morning, and sometimes in the afternoon as well. Just because sometimes, in the afternoon, you got so much cooking and you're just kind of like overstimulated with things that you have going on. And I'll just sit back in my chair and then just close my eyes and just pay attention to my breath, to how I'm breathing. And then things will it's like how the old days you had to defrag your computer.
Yep.
You had to fix the hard drive because it left particles of data everywhere. I feel like meditation is like defragging your brain.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. That's a great tip. I want to share a couple summary points for our audience that Gregory shared with us. And I love the first one is create struggle to overcome it. And we've got to create that. We've got to find it to move up the ladder of life. We've got to continue to create new struggles and overcome those struggles. And can't scale if you keep control of everything. Under whatever's beneath you, you created it. And I think that's a fantastic phrase. And the last thing I'll share is hire better than you. Hire better than you. So you can create that business for the future. So wonderful. Well, Gregory, thank you for being on Why Coaching Works, and really appreciate your time today. And definitely look forward to reading your book, The Startup Life Cycle.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You will absolutely. And to our audience, the achiever, keep growing, keep learning, and that's how you grow your business. All right. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Why Coaching Works podcast. I hope this episode has helped you see the individual, business, and executive impact, growth, and development that coaching provides. Please take a second to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Each review helps me impact more people just like you and make a difference in this world. See you on the next episode of Why Coaching Works.